All right, welcome back to part 19 of the Let's Build for Ruby and Rails Developer series I'm putting on. Going slow but steady on this series. Actually been suffering from slight bit of burnout, so if you've seen things slow down, that's what's going on. I'm still committed to doing this, but it's been a haul based on basically just working full time, doing other things on the side, everything else. So just if you're ever suffering from burnout, just take time off. It's okay. Last left off struggling through getting some validation in place for our Vue.js app. I just merged part 18, as you can see here. So if you're following along, you might see that stuff going on. But like I said, part 19 is this one. We've got our little title field at this point validating, which is good. But I have fear that some of these other fields will be kind of a pain in the ass to deal with Vuelidate, which is what we're using for the validation library with Vue. I'm going to attack validation, a bunch of it as much as I can on the front end, also do some on the model layer, and then we could also do it on the data layer on the database, but a lot of that stuff's kind of just hearsay. We can just deal with the model level if we need to. And then kind of return a response back to the user if something's not there, or just not even let them submit a job until this form is valid, which is the goal. So with that in mind, we need to carry on. I'm on the apply link at this point, so this is going to have its own set of attributes for validations. Basically, perp component, which I've added every field on the form is its own component at this point. And I'm just going to do its own validation per component, if that makes sense. So we could have done it like globally on a whole Vue component spectrum and just declared each of them in line, which might be a little more scalable, but I'm finding this being a little bit easier just to kind of manage without jumping back and forth between files. So that might change in the future, but we'll see what happens. So what I need to do is declare validations on our component. This one is the apply link, so I'm going to have required and URL as methods, so I'll just put URL there. And one last thing to do in this one, if there is an error, I want to add a class on the input. So we could say class, this is on the title, I should say. So if vtitle error, we're going to give it a class of border red, like 500, and see what we get back. So that won't really matter until we hit like submit and there's an error. But if we do error or vtitle.required, or we could extract this too. And then we'll do the min length too. So I'm going to do this one. If it's not up to spec on the min length, we'll add that class just to see if it works. So if I type, I think I have that backwards. Okay, we still got something wrong. Let's do this. So now it just displays. I wonder why that's not working. Okay, so there we go. If it's doing that, it might be the classes I have. So if I blur, I'll come back to this. There's some, I need to add like an input error class, I think, on the form. So maybe I'll add that. Input and input we go. So let's try that. Title, class. We'll just basically do, you could do any. So like v.title.anyError, I think. I can't remember if that's accurate. And we could just say input error. Doesn't seem to work though. Let's see if it's doing anything. Let's double check the V instance here. Any dirty maybe? Any error false? Let's say invalid maybe. I don't know if that's accurate though. There we go. But it'll always be red, so I don't want that to be the case, right? So I want it to start off gray. Goes away initially, but like, could we do inverse of invalid? That doesn't make sense. So if it's valid, it's red. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm gonna say, oh well, for now. We'll come back to that. Let's get some of this stuff done. So what I did in the past is set up a data portion per component. All the docs on this assume you're returning data this way. It's kind of mind-boggling that no one's, like, if you use Vuex or a store pattern, it's like, well, what do you do then? It's not quite clear to me, but maybe I don't have it right. So let's say link to apply, and then I'm just going to return basically the same from the store. And I'll put vModel here. Let's put trim. Okay, and then what we can do, I have this commented out from prior. But what I'll do is kind of follow suit of what we did on the title, which is if there's any error. And then the min link, we could just say if there's a valid URL, if not valid, so v title dot URL. So we need to import URL there. Okay. I got something wrong. What is it? Okay, we can't have both. So maybe I need a set state on this one. What is it? I don't even see the field now. Why? Error v title. Am I using title? Yeah. And I need to do this as well, which is what was wrong. Pass this in. I don't know if this will work. Probably not. Yeah, because there's no connection. So what I could do, I think, as on input, let's do change. So I'll do another method and try to do this, the touch scenario that I mentioned in the docs in the last episode. I found this where you can actually set the state without using a model. Some methods. Let's call handle I don't know, something like that, generic. We'll just bring this back down. Call this from this method instead. We need to pass the value through because we're grabbing it prior using this. So we'll pass value in this case, and in this one we will do handle link to apply input, pass in the actual value. And then in this method we can also do, I'm going to use their docs again because I can't remember. Whoops. So right here, without a model, you can still use input and event bindings. All right, so let's do the set method. So they have this like set name method here. And I'm gonna try it. I don't think it'll honestly work, but we'll see. And instead of name, we'll say like link. Don't really need to set. Maybe I could set an attribute that's not the same one. So data. Something like so. Then we can call that in this case, so this dot set link value. I have no idea if this will do anything. Doesn't appear so. Oh. Something happened. It doesn't do it very reactively, but okay, so we've got model criteria here. We're still not getting like validation that we want. No model defined there either, which doesn't make any sense. Link to apply, link to apply. Maybe it needs to be the same. Yep. Nice, okay. We figured it out, for fuck's sake. Okay, I don't like this method. This is stupid to me. Like, you have to redeclare your data to get this to work, but the way I think I'm doing things, it's necessary. My curiosity makes me wonder, if I enter this, reload, am I losing that data? Nope, it's still there. Cool. So we've still got our local storage, which was my main concern. Okay. Now, the big bulk of wanting to do this, like, I don't want this continue button to be even clickable at that point. So until this form is filled out, you can't even progress. So once we get that far, we'll have, if all these fields are valid, I think you can do like a everything's valid thing and display that this is clickable at that point. So let's carry on. I think this one's fine. I basically just want to make sure that the URL is valid. We do have a lightweight required attribute on the HTML tag itself, but let's just add one that just kind of mimics what we did on the title. It's just basically just if you do submit this, something's wrong, it's going to just show this error as a result. It won't show this as you're typing or anything at this point. So we'll just say v.link to apply. So I believe it's just going to render the valid URL. Nice. Okay. Now let's do the same for the description. So job description, I'm going to carry that forward. Not sure how this could work here. So data return, let's call it description, just like we are going to call the validator. And then we'll just say this dot store form.job description. There's probably a better way to do this. I'm no Vue expert. I just kind of learned as I've gone. So you know, take everything with a grain of salt here. Nothing I'm doing here is gospel. So feel free to improve upon my tactics if you're following along. So let's add validations on this level. This one I basically just want required and then a min length. I think it was like 140, like a tweet. And we need to import those two as validators. Pretty much mimic what we did with the title. Basically do this, put this below, and instead of title we'll say I always forget this, description. Shit. There. Okay, so v.description and we could say the description, can't remember if it's I think it's letters. It's 140 characters. Probably need more than that, like 240 characters. And maybe I'll call it characters instead. So if we go back to the job, I want to add that to be consistent. Okay, and we have the V model in place. So now we've set up the description to return that by default. And like the good developer might extract this stuff and put it in like a computed property and just make method names out of it. But I find that just to be, I mean, it's not overkill. If you need multiple things, it makes sense to extract. But at this stage, I think we're okay. So let's see what happens with this one then. We need 240 characters. There it is. It's displaying. I don't know how many 240 looks like. Bear with me. See if it ever goes away. Okay, it does. Feels like a lot though, so maybe I'll do like 150 and just call it. I hope your job description is longer than that, but it's okay, I guess, if not. Nice, so that's reactive. That's what I want. So this is going to be required by default anyway, so don't really need a validator on that one. We could show, I guess we could do it just like if there's an error, add like a class to it or something. Come back to that. This should have something pre-selected. At this point it does not, so that's interesting. So let's go back to our store. Is remote yes. Why isn't it set up to be that way? job remote. Value yes. If we do, I think you could say checked. Something like so. And that would like automatically set that based on the state. Okay, that's basically no-brainer too. Compensation type. I need to display if it's contract, full-time. I'm gonna put full-time first on that one. Why isn't it? I think it's because the store is set up to be. Let's start with full-time. I'm gonna reset the storage real quick, just to make sure these changes are applied. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Maybe years of experience, I could add it like maybe right in the middle, I don't know, or 3 or something, just so 1 isn't assumed. Years of experience, so we'll do like 3. And again, kill the storage. That's not being set. Interesting. Okay. So we don't have the checked here either. So why would that not work? This is being set. This isn't. I think I need to fix that. Instead of true here, let's go back to remote. Why wouldn't that work? Let's go to the components real quick. I'm debugging this stuff as I go, so apologies if I'm just farting around. Got nothing. So the store, what does the store say? Job? Nothing. Why? Why would it be undefined? Maybe you need to remount the page real quick. No. Interesting. Why wouldn't that actually work? This is so weird. Change vModel store form remote. Like this should work, right? I think what needs to be done, instead of yes and shit, like it should just be true. And if true, vModel but for some reason it's undefined. I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna put, I think, is remote schema, is it a string? It's a Boolean, so that makes no sense to pass the value, to be honest. So I'm gonna put true, false, and then I think in a controller we probably got some horse shit going on there. So job controller, create job.new. Okay. We're not doing anything there to like validate that, so that's a one step in the right direction. So why can't I dynamically check this shit? It's only checked right now because I clicked it, right? So I need an initial load to set it as such. And it's not. I think we need like a name remote. Okay, am I just terrible? Default value on radio input Vue.js. This should work. Why isn't it? Gender female. Okay. Name, gender, gender, value, value. Do I even need check thens of view model? I'm blanking here. I don't get why there's no initial way to set this. Like I've done it from the state, I thought. Like everything's undefined in this case. Why would it be undefined? Store, importing store. Shouldn't the store set the initial state? Or am I missing something? What's our initial component? It's mounting on components form. Mounted this. Okay, this is what's wrong. We kind of need to just do this kind of thing for each deal we want to do. Okay. which is kind of stupid. That didn't work. Okay, that works. I don't like having to set it this way though. Like, why would I not? I guess most of the time you bring back data from a server to do this. So we're just doing it manually. Okay, that's kind of weird. I don't like that. Well, one thing I want to set is compensation type to full-time. So that's going to be a given. And then I want to set the experience at what, 3? There we go. So that gives us some state. It's so weird that that's not mounted from the store, but whatever, I guess. Okay. Go back to full-time. Okay, so those are good. We've required everything so far, so the company logo won't be required per se, so I don't really care about that. Website should probably be required, so let's add that component next. Website, so now we need our scripts and validations. Here we'll have a company website, and we just want to put a URL and required and import always forget the thingamajig. Basically this. Here. Okay, validators, and then we need to set the same data thing we've been doing. Feels hacky to me. I don't like it, but for some reason it works. Okay, return, and then on here we're going to set the same company website. It's going to return store. Oops. Just like we're querying for it here, and then we can use that value as the new data on a V model. Trim, go that whole shebang route there. I believe that should do it. Then we just want to do basically this stuff again. Like if I feel like if you don't have a website these days, you shouldn't be applying. I don't know, maybe that's terrible, but not applying, but posting a job, I should say. So this is more or less the company website URL. Let's go to the link one. I forget which way I went with that one. Apply link. If not, okay. Yeah, so here we go. And then we could just say this message. You could probably make these like global messages, but it's okay. So now that should give us some validation on here. If we don't have one, just validate. Okay, cool. Company name, definitely need that one. We're just going down the pike here, so it's everything. Oops, need to do that. And let's say company name. It's gonna be, what do we want? Just basically required, right? Yep, okay. All right, and same thing, so company name. I think the naming convention here really matters. So your validator right here needs to match whatever your V model is. So I would recommend doing that, even though I don't know what the hell I'm doing most of the time. Store.form.job.company name. Let's see, company name. This needs a BV model. Do that route. For some reason, this is giving me bugs. Oh, we don't have a wrapping div. There we go. And we need to add our classes, text red 500, text small. I think I added that to this one. Yeah. All right, and let's double check that one. This would be I'm gonna put error here. Basically, if everything, eventually we're gonna check if all this has any errors. If there are, that would display. At this case, we can just put whatever, but we definitely need a required on that one. So it makes me wonder how you would do required. Would it always just be there? Like I could always display required until you enter something, but it looks ugly to me. So I'll leave it alone for now. Company email. Next up. Just add this here. Company email. Script. Oh, come on, autocomplete. And let's see, data. Is this one? This is the weird one. Last video I was like, why don't we have this in the app yet? Like this is like crucial. This is that store.form.job.email. I think I called it. Let's double check that. Email, yeah. Okay, and that gives us the V model attribute. Trim, essentially, if you're not sure what trim does, basically removes any white space while it's already typing. It's just a time saver, so you don't have to do it on your own. Those little handy things Vue puts in has been why I've gravitated towards it than like React or something, which React might have something like that, probably does, but I just haven't studied it enough. I'm a noob. All right, and then validations, we'll just do company email. We're gonna do email and required. basically those require, we haven't been really using required to its full extent. I'm basically just counting on if there's errors or not, which isn't quite great, but I think it'll work for what we need. I'm going to pass this import statement over here so we get access to required email. And what we want to do is first basically these v.company email.email. And cool. All right, that works for that. I may just do margin top here so that's not so far offset. Yeah. Okay, and we'll follow suit with company description. So basically just like we did with, oh yeah, I need to deal with that. Job description, we'll do that here. So I'm gonna copy this for the most part. I like data pretty close to the top. Had a typo there. So company description will be this one. We're gonna have, yeah, the same thing. I don't want to require this, but actually I'm not going to require this at all. So let's just leave it alone. Okay, we'll leave that one be. And that's it. So this, we need a preset thing. Wonder if I should, that's kind of shady. I'll set it to no thanks by default. We need to go back to that form, that first form, just like we did here. I'll set the upsell type. And we'll say, what the hell was it? Good. I think it's just no thanks, right? Yeah, right here. Stuff should probably be normalized. But so that way we come back to this form, it's already checked. You just, like, we're gonna basically market it as post a job for $199. Again, this pricing I haven't even really thought too deeply about. It might change, but I think that's fair at the moment. I don't know. But yeah, that allows us to essentially go forth and get these done. So with those done, what I want to do is go down to our main pagination, not the pagination, where is it at? Form pagination. So like the continue button on where I'm at. So on the fields, not the fields, the steps on this page, this button's gonna be either visible or not based on if there's fields that are validated. So do we have an instance of any of this stuff? That's my concern, is like, how do I hook into the instance of everything? Since we did validation per component, that gives us a little less luxury of being able to I guess I could hook into each component and check. Okay, makes me wonder if I could do this. This is annoying. There's no way to access each validation globally at this point, right? So like, so what I'm worried about is right now I'm passing, everything's on the component level, but at this point to validate like everything at once, I need a way to access a generalized instance of Vuelidate. And that doesn't exist at this point because this entire component, at this point, everything's nested within this job info step. But I want to be able to hook into that and only continue if we've set everything to be valid. So what I could do, and it's not looking pretty, is go back to each component, each field, pull out the data, and bring back it to the parent. So in this case, we could do either the job form, like the root parent, or the job info step. And then check all of them at once, because we'd have access to the entire validations object here. So I think what I hate to say is I'm going to do that. So let me do that real quick. I know this video is running long, but let's try to see if we can get it going. So I'm going to set a new validations method. I'm going to go through the apply link, grab this one. I think I'm going to just set it on the job info because this is the main step where the user's entering data. Title. And then we'll have to reach into each component's children and go up a parent like you saw me try maybe in that previous video. And I think that's about the only real way to make this work as intended without, like, the store pattern I wish could work, but it doesn't. So it's kind of complicated given the case of what we're trying to achieve here. So I'm sorry if this is a little half-assed. Because I'm trying to wrap my head around the best way to do it, and I'm honestly just acted before really thinking about it. So that happens. So let's go down the list. Company description, we're not doing that one. The email, we're doing this one. And name, just required. Oops, here. So now that we got it to work, I think I know I just need to pipe things up a little differently. Is the only issue at this point. So company name, let's get the website. These are fine. The description. The remote is true title. So that's pretty much it. So now we can remove validations from each of these. So we'll start at the top. Like title is going to have, we're going to import this stuff this way. I think I use min length required email URL and something else. I think that's it. Yeah. All right. So for each one, now we've got to pipe that through in this case. So I want to go back to the title, and instead we'll have v dot, I think it's just parent. I think we could still make use of this data attribute just as it is in this case, so that works. Let's verify that though. I think we should probably do that. Might get bugs. So if the title works, okay, this isn't working. Job title. I think it would be parent.v. And this job title is nested within this job info step, which is why it's the parent, if that makes any bit of sense. So instead here we'll have parent.v. I think that should get the errors to go away. So if we do this, so that's not working. Let's double check. I might need to set the data attribute, data property on, yeah, title min. That's working. Data's working there, but it's not picking up here. So maybe the data needs to be set on. All right, guys, rather than go down a rabbit hole on video, I wanted to show you kind of where I ended up with the way I'm doing these validations at this point. One edge case is our job description needed some special treatment just because we're using this Vue tricks library. So I've used a V model of our traditional store pattern. In our other fields, we're using like a rehashed version of V model, which we basically repurpose as a data that allows us to hook into our validations per component. So this is getting quite complex, and honestly, it's starting to get messy and not to my liking, but it is working at this point. Like I said, I went down a rabbit hole to figure out how to at least get a state. I'll show you just by example of, I want this continue button here, for example, to light up or at least show once something's valid in the form. And I just want to give you an example. If we enter some content here, I'm checking each field that has a validation, as you can see in the console. And once it's actually valid, we'll basically want to show that continue button and allow you to advance, which is the whole goal. So once we get to a certain point, I'm hoping this will actually work. It might not though. Naturally, as I hit record, something's wrong. So let's try something else. So we've got false, 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 and you see one here, the description here, the validated description here is true. So we need a way to basically hook into that. We open little ipsum, open this, try to get some content in here and see if I can get it to validate. So far it's not, and that's mostly because it's like a form input kind of thing. So I'm listening for those events. So for some reason this isn't setting itself to false. And what I'm checking at this point is this invalid statement on each field that has a validation in place. If it's invalid, it's going to say true, but we want it to say false, which would basically kick off this continue button to be displayed. So for some reason, right before I recorded this, it was working fine, and now it's not. So let's see what happens. False, false, true, true, true. So that's interesting. I just basically want to check that this has a minimum length and is required. So for some reason, it is not working for me at this point. If we do change, try this, invent.target.value. I don't know if this will make a difference. So it's obviously not valid there. We're entering data. I'll just paste in more. It's still true. So that's still, I can't get this one to go and work because the model is null at this point. So that must be why. So for some reason though, I can't use this model like we did other stuff. Like I want to use it this way, but the validations, I don't know if they pick up. It's not, yeah, it's like a, let me see, validated. I have it spelt wrong. Let's try to see if it, maybe I'm just wrong. So if we type in here, false, false, false. So now, see, that's not right. So everything's valid even though there's no content, which doesn't make any sense there. So that's why I'm running into issues with that specific field. This Vue tricks library isn't quite that helpful with that stuff that allows me to kind of check against this. It was just working. That's so funny. So basically at this point there's no model, and like ideally you should still be able to use no model in the context of the documentation. Like it shows me this concept, you set it to touch when you make a change. So instead of V model here, maybe we do value instead of, let's see if that works. No, it doesn't matter. I think it's just that tricks library is just not working as advertised for what we need. It's like this description is null even though there's values. So let me see if I can do store.form.job description. just like cut and copy this back. So still no validation there. This is still null at this point. And we don't have any model as far as I can see. No, invalid. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Maybe it's we can only hook into the input event. I'm not sure. So there's that. Is there any model? That's not doing anything. Okay. So let's see if we can do this approach. At least get the model part spec'd out, right? It's still not doing anything. Form. So if we go back to the job description, we have it in our store, which is working wonderfully. That's great, but we can't validate anything, which is mind-boggling at this point. So I'm setting the description. I'm coming down here. I'm setting this to copy what's passed through. Maybe I'll just, instead of passing, I'll just say this. I don't even need to pass anything. I don't know if that'll make any bit of difference. And then we want the validated description to touch. Try this. This feels wrong. I'm going to try it. I feel like we'll get an error here because they're like the same name and all this weird stuff's happening. Yeah, so now there's data, but there's no validation at all. So I'm not quite sure what to do here. It's bugging me quite a bit. Maybe if I do this. Kind of like I did with everything else. I just don't know that that's going to work. So what I'm wondering if I come back here, kind of revert the things I was doing. This is kind of where I started. And then for some reason it worked, and now it of course won't as soon as I hit record. So let's try there. It's still doing it. So I'm not quite sure. I might just leave that alone. I would assume you'd enter a description here, but see it like validates, but it's still saying it's invalid here. So maybe it's just a matter of typing. So that seemed to work right there when you're actually typing, right? So I guess maybe it's the copy and pasting thing. I don't know. But when I hit a certain point, that goes away, the continue button shows. So that's what I'm after. And for some reason, it's just not working, I guess, on paste, which is maybe a concern. So I'm going to save this as is for now and call this the end of that part. I know it went long, a lot of crap moving at this point. But we got basic validation. Let me show you exactly what I did real quick on the form on the info spot. Like, this is kind of hacky, but I'm querying for the form with basic JavaScript, and as you input, I'm filtering through all the children that have that $V attribute on it. So it's going to be based on any component that we've defined below that has this validations prop method on it. So anything that's got that is going to be queried and returned, and we're filtering those back to just return those with validations. So I said children with validations there. And then I'm doing an every call. So basically I'm checking every of those to see if there's an invalid statement to set the false. If that means it's false, then it's going to be the invalid case. So, and then I'm just logging everything for show at this point. But that's the gist. It's kind of hacky, kind of gross, but I'm just basically coming back with a statement that says if it is invalid, we're going to not show the continue button, or like make it not clickable. And then otherwise we're going to make it clickable if it is valid. So that's it for now. I'll come back with the next episode and probably clean this stuff up, and then we'll kind of wrap things up, hopefully with this form, and get things squared away and make the UI look a lot better too. So I'll see you in the next part. Hello Rails is my new course on Ruby on Rails. I'll teach you Ruby on Rails from the ground up. Visit hellorails.io for more information.